Someone's having fun out there, is all I'll say about that. Welcome back to the Proxima Centauri Public Library. This is the second video in a series about the worst book to ever win the Hugo Award. In part 1, I introduced you all to They'd Rather Be Right, an oddity of sci-fi history. And in this video, we'll get into the story and talk about a few parts, mostly just that I think are neat, but I do have a point, I promise. Here's that opening paragraph from last time. Joey pulled the covers up over his head, trying to shut out the whispers which filled the room. But even with the pillow over his head, their shrill buzz entered up through the roof of his mouth, tasting acrid and bitter, spinning around in his brain. Fingers in his ears simply made the words emerge from a sensation of cutting little lights into words. Joey is psychic. He sees and hears other people's thoughts as if they're his own. He later gains control of this, but as a child, he experiences a psychic onslaught not unlike the sensory overload experienced by some autistic children. Something that I found interesting about this book, as opposed to its predecessor, The Demolished Man, which also deals with psychics, or espers, from ESP, is that Joey seems to receive not just the thoughts, but the emotions as well. In this first scene, Joey is subjected to an argument his parents are having about him downstairs. They're whispering to try to avoid him hearing them, but he hears them anyway, and he knows exactly how they are feeling about him. This part of Joey's ability will become even more important in the next sequence. Joey's father works at a university, and he takes Joey in to see one of the psychologists there. They don't end up seeing that man, but his subordinate, a man named Dr. Martin, who just so happens to have an interest in the possibility of ESP, something which isn't accepted by orthodox science, a concept we'll run into a lot over the course of the book. If you've seen the season 5 finale of The X-Files, this scene will seem very familiar to you. Martin presents Joey with a set of cards, which each have shapes on one side of them, and Joey is supposed to tell Martin what shape is on what card by reading Martin's mind when he can't see the face of the cards. He initially gives all wrong answers, but by reading Martin's thoughts and emotions, he comes to realize that giving all wrong answers is just as telling as giving all right answers. So in order to try to pass as normal, he changes the pattern. This time, Joey did not make the mistake of waiting until the end of the deck before he called correct cards. The doctor had said every 5th card should be called correctly. Joey did not understand statistical language. Dutifully, he called every 5th card correctly. 4 wrong, 1 right. And again, the rising excitement near the 20th card. Again, what are the laws of chance that the boy would call 4 wrong, 1 right, again and again in perfect order? Joey promptly called 2 of them right together, and felt Martin's disappointment. The pattern had been broken again. And then a rise of excitement, carefully suppressed. "Let's run them again," Martin said, and he whispered strongly to himself. "This time he must call every other one of them right, in order to pass as just an average boy." Joey was bewildered. There seemed to be a double thought in Martin's mind, a tenseness he could not understand. He wavered, and then doubting he was doing the right thing, he began to call every other card correctly. Halfway through the deck, Martin laid the cards down. Joey caught a flash of undisguised elation in his mind, and sank back into his own chair in despair. He had done it wrong. "Okay, Joey," Martin said quietly. There was a smile of tender bitterness around his lips. "I don't know what the idea is. You've got your reasons, and they must be pretty terrible ones. Do you think you could talk to me? Tell me about it." This sets up a major pattern of Joey's for the rest of the book. He's always managing his behavior for other people because he knows instantly what they want. However, this same sense also makes him a master at managing others' behavior as well. This brings us to the end of what was originally the short story, Crazy Joey. In the next part of the book, we jump forward in time some years. Joey has grown up, and he calls himself Joe now. He's in college, and Dr. Martin has contacted a colleague, Dr. Billings, and asked Billings to look after Joe for him. We're introduced to Dr. Billings in a conversation between himself and a government representative known as a resident investigator, one Mr. Rogan. As one of Rogan's predecessors put the job, "I'm completely impartial, Dr. Billings," the man had said. "I merely see to it that you teachers say nothing which might threaten our freedom of speech." After making sure Billings isn't teaching anything forbidden, Mr. Rogan gets down to the real business of why he's there. Billings is being given a new research assignment from Washington. As Rogan puts it, "What a target finder missile does, you simply have to do in reverse." They want him to build a self-piloting plane which never crashes. Simple. Just a machine that knows the future. Easy peasy. Billings immediately knows that this is impossible, but he can't refuse or he risks imprisonment, torture, even execution. So, he goes to Joe. Joe presents resistance several times. He's essentially lived the past decade plus of his life masking his ability. He doesn't want to jeopardize himself by using his powers. Billings manages to get him on the project as a secretary, but Joe refuses to do anything that isn't contained in his official duties. The project continuously runs into snags. The many different departments of the university, all working together, constantly disagree and miscommunicate. Billings finally manages to convince Joe that using his powers in a very minor way can be ethical, just to smooth over the disagreements and friction. The cybernetic machine they're constructing starts to come together. It was Hoskins, in charge of the cybernetic aspects, who put the general feeling into words a few days later. "I have often observed," Hoskins said to no one in particular, as several of them sat around the general meeting room, "that you'll be faced with a problem which looks completely unsolvable. There's just no point at which you can grab hold of it. Then suddenly, for no reason at all, the whole thing smooths out." Billings darted a quick look at Joe, but that young man, busy at a small table over in the corner of the room, did not look up from his job of assembling various reports into order. Another, perhaps even more significant piece of evidence became apparent that the men were incorporating the problem into their thinking normally. The thing acquired a name. Bossy. Suddenly everybody was using it. The animal husbandry department had supplied it. "Anybody who's ever handled cows knows they can be the most ornery, cantankerous, stubborn critters you ever saw one minute and completely gentle and obedient the next," one of the men from that department said. One of my favorite things about this section of the book is how it mirrors real-world computer and AI research. The interdepartmental cooperation seen here is viewed as essential. The textile department provides necessary tools the same way that punch cards from automated looms provided the means for early computer programming. The art and music departments provide crucial insight into the development of Bossy's sensory apparatus. The way Bossy begins to learn is likened to that of a human child. Now, AI researchers in real life will tell you that training a neural net is not quite like teaching a child, but there are parallels. As the project gets close to completion, word leaks out to the public about what they're building, and there's backlash. Backlash which is very familiar to a modern reader. There's fear of science, fear of a machine coming to replace humans. A machine with no soul. The title of the original short story is taken from a line here. "Hide, hide, witch, the good folk come to burn thee." This is posted on a sign on campus shortly before a mob with literal torches is incited by a radio personality to march on the university and burn the machine. Joe, Billings, and Hoskins manage to disassemble her and ship her away in a crate just in time. Both of those parts, Joey as a kid and Joe in college working on the project, were really exciting and engaging to me, and I was starting to get really confused about the negative reputation of the book. It was important for me to remember that neither of those parts were what won the award. Thanks for watching. I promise next time we'll get to the actual thing that this series is about. See you soon. Be safe out there. Intro, take one. Intro, take one. What's that fucking button? Fuck. In part one, in this video, I say basically the same thing too many times. Paragraph 4, take 4, I think. I'm a professional, I swear. He's especially... Haha. One more for coverage. One of my favorite things. There's a lot of noise out there. Sound of speeds. You do with the speed. Pause for plane. I forgot to say that that was paragraph 7, take 1. Paragraph 7, take 2. Excuse me.